this, baby. In hate.
How's it going, guys? Welcome back to my channel and time for another episode of Luke's Reviews. On today's video, well, it hasn't been as long of a wait as the previous sequel had, but we are finally being admitted back into the world of Pandora as we join the Sully family on another adventure in Avatar, Fire and Ash. Some mild spoilers for Avatar The Way of Water, by the way. It's going to be in this review, just in case you haven't seen that one yet. Following on from the events of The Way of Water, the Sully family are still grieving the loss of Neytiri. Jake has gone into war prep mode, shutting down much of his emotions, whilst Neytiri is reaching dangerous levels of fury towards all sky people, Spider included. But any hope of living quietly with the Metkayina is upended thanks to the arrival of the Magwan clan, Na'vi with a strong penchant for fire, and who eventually team up with Quaritch and the RDA as war is imminent. It would have to be a cold day in hell for me to never, ever be wanting to take a trip to Pandora courtesy of James Cameron IMAX Airlines. I said it when I first watched Avatar back in 2009, and then I said it again when we watched Avatar The Way of Water just a few years ago, and I will now reiterate those exact same words once more for Avatar Fire and Ash. There is no one on planet Earth who makes movies like James Cameron. Scale is merely a 5-letter word as his movies seek to overcome every single filmmaking obstacle that could ever be conceived. It is just joyous to be in the world of Pandora. Exquisite landscapes that never fail to provide awe, the detail in which the planet operates, tribes populate, and nature behaves is astonishing, and dare I say, worthy of a David Attenborough narration at any given moment. Now, I will say, Fire and Ash isn't as exploratory as the previous two films were. Obviously, the first one was very much just an introduction, and the second one really had to get you re-immersed into that world after a decade-year-long wait. But Pandora feels a little bit more familiar now, I guess because it has only been 3 years since we last took a trip there. And so in this third entry of the franchise, we are spending a lot of time back with the Ometakaya, back with the Metkayina, even more time spent with the Tolkun. The only real new additions to this film are the Magwan clan, and very briefly, we are introduced to the Na'vi wind traders. The Magwan clan themselves are a daring and somewhat unsettling new group of adversaries. They tend to behave a lot more like the War Boys from Mad Max Fury Road, where they are dousing themselves in flames and kamikazeing straight into whatever they need to. None of them pray to Ewa and are instead led by the intimidating Varang. She makes for a very good antagonist, someone who has lost all sense of faith in her life and only craves wanton destruction. Una Chaplin plays her brilliantly well in capturing somewhat of a siren-esque draw to her. All I'm saying is that there are for sure going to be some corners of Reddit where there are users going feral for her. Her clan is soon accosted by the returning Stephen Lang as Quaritch and his RDA troop. In this third installment, for me, this is the most interesting Quaritch has been. Not only is there still this internal conflict with his son Spider, that does actually lead to an occasional and quite unique pairing for a portion of the film, but Quaritch is clearly wrestling between his human and Na'vi being. Now, the character of Quaritch has always dismissed the Na'vi people as primitive and savage, but it's only through this introduction to the Magwan clan and seeing their way of life being far more aggressive and, I guess, in his head, almost more sophisticated and reasonable, that you can tell he's drawn to them. You bear witness to the character of Quaritch somewhat opening up to Varang and her people and fitting in more than he now does with the humans. It's all very well done and predominantly thanks to an excellent performance by Stephen Lang. Jumping over to Team Sully now, this for me, besides the film's completely astonishing visual effects, This was the greatest strength of Fire and Ash for me, is these character dynamics. Much of what the Sully family are experiencing in this film can be related to the various stages of grief. For Jake, there is an underlying sense of denial, that if he refuses to acknowledge his eldest son's passing, then for him, life can just continue. What he doesn't account for is how that affects his relationship with the rest of his family and how they depend on him to see this through. Now, I have to say, I was a little disappointed in how Neytiri was used in the second film. So I'm very happy to now say that she is utilized much, much better in Fire and Ash. She gets plenty of ass kicking in, but also her grief is that of anger and rage. If she had it her way, she'd enact a one-woman genocide on all Sky people. And that is made even more complicated due to certain developments for the character of Spider, who may inadvertently be a possible cause for the extinction of all Na'vi people. Loak also continues to be somewhat of a co-lead in the film, shouldering much of the blame for Natayam's death. Many of the Metkayina treat him as an outsider, and he's not exactly getting that warm of a welcome in his own family. That is, of course, why the pairing of him and the badass Tolkun Payakan work so well, because they complement each other and they are a mirror image within their own tribe. The two of them also get a fair few standout moments in the final battle. And speaking of battles, no one does epic warfare like James Cameron. I know, Peter Jackson, he has the Lord of the Rings films, but Avatar and Lord of the Rings, you really can't compare the two. There is plenty of action in Fire and Ash, although I wouldn't go so far as to say that it is non-stop, balls to the wall, consistent action. There's some downtime, but the important thing is that when those action sequences do hit, they hit in bombastic fashion. The first act is predominantly just an ongoing chase sequence as the Sully family find themselves hunted by Varang and her clan. There's a thrilling rescue attempt within the confines of the RDA stronghold, and then we arrive at the big climactic battle as Cameron takes the climax of his first Avatar film, he takes the climax of The Way of Water, and he smushes them together to collide in what I can only describe as a battle of epic proportions across the sky, land, and the sea. This is the very reason why these films must be seen in a cinema to truly appreciate the spectacle that James Cameron is orchestrating here. So please go and see this film in a cinema. Don't wait for it to come onto Disney Plus. Don't wait to see if you can just rent it online. Seek it out. And if possible, I know it's not easy for everyone, but if you can, if you have the opportunity to, go and see it in IMAX. I was very fortunate enough to go and see this in an IMAX 3D showing where visually it did not put a foot wrong. I did also see it in a 48 frames per second output. Now, that is more of a smoother image. A lot of people aren't necessarily on board with it because it looks almost too smooth, kind of like you're watching a video game. I see those complaints. And I would say that that bothered me for maybe the first couple of scenes, and then your brain just automatically retunes. It never bothered me again. Now, I'm not quite ready to jump into my overall rating for the film, and that is because I do have some negatives for Fire and Ash. Firstly, the pace. Now, a longer runtime is not foreign to this franchise. The first movie, I think, clocked in at about 2 hours 45. The second one was about 3 hours and 10, and Fire and Ash clocks in at 3 hours and 17 minutes. But for the first time within this series, it felt its length. The main offender of the issues that I have with the pacing are to do with the repetitive story structure. We go over some of the same narrative beats, not only within this film that we keep just going in circles, but we revisit a lot of the stuff that I thought had been resolved from the sequel. The dynamic between Jake and Loak is still kind of, they're at odds with each other. I thought that had been kind of pulled together nicely in The Way of Water. again, with Loak, he's still kind of an outcast with Payakan. I thought that had all been redeemed and resolved in The Way of Water. But again, we're revisiting these exact same beats. Truth be told, if you had told me that some of these scenes were actually deleted scenes from The Way of Water, I probably would have believed you. Because there is comfortably 30 minutes where we are just doing the same thing over and over again that could have been cut out of the film entirely. Even the final battle itself, whilst undeniably exciting and technically faultless, we've seen elements of all this before. The Ikran coming in to save the day, the Tolkun going free willy and destroying ships, Kiri communing with nature and launching an attack of her own. I look at where the film culminated, Fire and Ash, where it ended and where our characters were. And I'm not gonna lie, I don't think we're in all that much of a different spot compared to how we started the film. It may have some narrative baggage and a mild sense of deja vu, but above all else, Avatar Fire and Ash is another brilliant blockbuster bonanza courtesy of the great James Cameron. In all seriousness, I could spend 3 hours watching flowers bloom in Pandora, and I'm sure it would be invigorating. But fortunately, Cameron packs his film full of extraordinary spectacle that I don't think any other director is capable of. The visuals continue to be flawless, the world of Pandora is as rich as ever, and the character dynamics for both our heroes and villains is very well explored. Now, if it is true, and we have some time to wait for Avatar 4, then so be it. But one thing I am very sure of is that it will be worth that wait. So I'm going to give Avatar Fire and Ash an 8.5 out of 10. Anyway, guys, those were my thoughts on Avatar Fire and Ash. Let me know, have you had a chance to see the film yet? What did you think? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. And my question to you, what is your favorite fictional movie planet? But that is all the time we have for today, so thank you very much for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.
Hello, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you have, make sure to click that like button, and if you aren't already, click that subscribe button too.